what's up everyone? This is Jared Uden, youth motivational speaker and audience warm-up guy. And so I wanted to kind of take you guys behind the scenes on an event that I'm actually at this weekend on a Saturday. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm at the International Women's Success Conference here in Orlando, Florida. And so what you see behind me is the actual room that this huge conference is about to take place in. And my job is to be the audience warm-up guy and MC for the entire event. So I'm doing this video and taking you guys behind the scenes because I know a lot of you wonder, how do you warm up an audience? What are some keys and some tips to doing public speaking, and how do you really capture your audience? So the audience warm-up guy, what your job actually is to keep your audience entertained and informed. So you're not the premier act, you're not the official host of the conference, you're just kind of the talent before the event actually happens. And it is your job to make sure that the entire event flows correctly from start to finish. So that means anytime that there's a break or a pause in the room between speakers, when a speaker gets off the stage, between that and when another speaker comes up, it is your job to basically get up, get on the mic, entertain the audience, let them know what's coming next, and keep them entertained and informed while there is some dead space there. So if you've ever been to a live talk show in New York or LA and you've ever sat in the audience before the main host comes out on stage and performs the actual show, you know that you're actually there for maybe 3 or 4 hours before the show actually starts. And so typically there's a comedian, there's some sort of act that comes on to really keep the audience engaged, warmed up. They might actually teach you how to clap, how to do a specific audience cheer, and how to really engage you in the experience of the actual talk show before the talk show host comes out. And so that would be considered the audience warm-up guy. And as the warm-up guy, you get out there and you might play some games with the audience. You might do a bunch of twerking and just any kind of entertainment that you can to keep the audience engaged, paying attention, and energized before the actual host comes out. And so the same goes for syndicated television. Let's just say you're in the studio audience for a live sitcom that's going to air. A sitcom only runs for about 30 minutes on TV, but the live studio audience is actually there sometimes for 8 hours or more, just sitting there watching the show being filmed. And so they have an audience warm-up guy as well. And so their job, anytime that they stop tape or stop filming or the actors need a break, it's the audience warm-up guy's job to just jump right up and entertain the audience, whether it's going to be playing games, telling jokes, doing whatever they can to keep the audience energized and still engaged, so that when they start tape again, that the audience will be motivated to laugh and engage with the show as it's actually filming. So that is your job as an audience warm-up guy, and if you've done your job correctly, by the time the host gets up or by the time the actors come out on stage, the audience should be energized, engaged, and ready to participate, and that's your job. All right, so right now I'm actually backstage and I'm letting the setup crews kind of get everything set up. I'm just gonna be out of their way for a little while, but I really like being in the room way before an event actually happens, so I can just kind of survey the room, kind of gather my parameters and see what's gonna work and what's not gonna work for my warm-ups. And so everyone always asks, what are the best methods to warming up an audience? How do you do it? How do you make sure they're engaged and having fun? And so everyone is absolutely different. And one thing I will say is, how some professional speakers are trained to, don't move your hands so much when you talk. You want to stand in one place and you want to make sure that you're speaking really clearly, or you want to use note cards. So my method is, I just like to be myself. I like to be fun. I like to run around the audience. I like to put the mic in people's faces, ask them questions. I like to, have a DJ in the back. Usually I'll use a pre-selected soundtrack of songs and I'll just plan to turn the entire room into a dance party. So I try and do anything I possibly can to get the audience moving, get the blood pumping. You'll see later on in the day, maybe I'll show some footage. I'll try and get the audience up and I'll try and get them clapping. I'll try and get them moving around. Sometimes I might form a huge Congo line around the room and just have, turn the entire room into a dance party. And so there are a number of things that you can do to kind of get your audience up and energized. One thing that I do not do is use note cards. I don't use note cards. I don't stand behind a podium. I do what is considered kind of flat-footed speaking, meaning I memorize my entire act. So I write out all of the things that I want to say. I write out all the jokes, all the activities that I'm going to have an audience do, all the games we're going to play, and I write it all down and I memorize it. And then I get out there with a microphone and I just flat-foot deliver. right, so one of the most effective things that you can do in order to be effective as an audience warm-up guy is to know as much about your audience and as much about the event as humanly possible. So as you can see around the room, everything is kind of pink, green, and girly colors and everything. And here's the podium right behind me. And so as you can see, this event is for women. So actually this event that I'm at is going to be for female entrepreneurs. And so typically when I do an event, I'm normally at a school in a group of 700 to 800 teens, and so they're pretty rowdy. It's easy to get them up and jumping and moving around and having fun, and that's what I'm about. I'm about energy and engagement. However, since this event is particularly for females, a lot of them, as you can tell from the podium behind me, are going to come in heels, and so it's going to be a little more difficult to get a group of females that are wearing heels to get up and jumping and dancing and moving around. So you always want to be cognizant of the kind of audience that you're warming up. Maybe they won't be able to do that, but maybe I can get them to do some other activities like clapping and moving around and walking around the room and doing some of those kinds of activities. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I'm the kind of speaker, I actually don't like to stand on a stage behind a podium. It kind of makes you distant and away from the audience, and so what I actually like to do is get on the floor if at all possible. And so I like to get on the floor and kind of get out in the audience, go up and down the aisles, and just really feel like I'm one with the crowd instead of being up on a stage. And so that's why it's really important to, if you're going to do that, is to memorize your act, memorize your bullet points, memorize what you're going to say, memorize your activities, and just go with it. And so I think that really helps you to connect with the audience, and it makes you way more effective as a warm-up guy. So I know a lot of you that are starting off speaking, sometimes you're going to a school for the first time, or you're going to be hosting a conference or emceeing something for the first time, and sometimes the meeting or the event planner will email you an entire honorarium sheet, and it details, what do you want? Do you want water? Do you want the audience to be seated a certain way? What kind of microphone do you want? And so if you're speaking for the first time, a lot of that stuff can be kind of daunting and you may not know what to ask for. And so when it comes to microphones, my suggestion, I know a lot of people like to use a lav mic, and that's actually what I have on right now. If you can see, it's a little clip mic that goes right here on your lapel, and then the belt pack just kind of goes in your back pocket. And this is really cool because it allows you to move around hands-free. The microphone, goes to the receiver, it picks up your sound, and you can just be hands-free and kind of move around the room, and that's pretty cool. But my actual recommendation, I actually prefer the wireless handheld mic like this with no cord attached. The reason I like this kind of mic is because I'm one of those speakers that loves to, again, move all around an audience, move around the stage, and just kind of use the entire room. And this actually allows me to control my own sound. So if I want to get louder, bring the mic closer, or if I want to ask someone a question, I can just put the mic in their face. And this just makes it a lot easier. So this is actually my recommendation if you're going to be speaking somewhere for the first time, and if you're not going to be using note cards, is to use or is to request a wireless handheld mic. A wireless handheld mic is usually the best option. So another tip is when you're using a microphone, if you're planning to move all around the room like I do, I typically like to arrive in the room at least an hour or two before the actual show starts, and I like to test my sound. And so I like to turn on the mic and make sure it sounds great and make sure the amplification is correct, and I'll actually move all across the room in front of the speakers, in front of the stage, down the actual aisles of the room, and test the sound to make sure there's no feedback, that there's no ringing in the mic, and to make sure the sound is going to be accurate, because the last thing you want to do is to get started with your actual set or your warm-ups and the microphone goes out when you travel to a certain part of the room, and so you don't want that to happen. So my main suggestion there is be in the room as early as you can and test your sound out. That is going to save you a lot of time and embarrassment. All right, so one of the last things I'll mention about sound and sound quality is way before you actually go to the event, you want to speak with the conference planner or the meeting planner or the school assembly counselor, and you want to make sure that they actually have a quality sound system. And the reason you ask is because what they might consider to be a quality sound system may not actually be a quality sound system. So for example, if you're going to be speaking inside of a gymnasium to a group of 1,000 students, and what they're planning on using are the internal speakers that are like attached to the ceiling, typically that's not going to be your most high quality sound system. So at this event that I'm at in particular, I'll just kind of take you around. So they actually have stage monitors, they have stage speakers, and they also have these 25s, 35s up here, and they also have the subwoofers and the amplification sound on both sides of the room. So this event, I am pretty confident that the sound system is going to be super high quality. And the other thing is, whenever a school sends you over an honorarium sheet to fill out. So again, that's going to be the sheet that details, you know, what you want, how you want the audience to be set up, are there any special needs that you have, and usually I'll just ask for 2 bottles of water and a quality sound system. And if I'm actually speaking in an auditorium or at a school in an assembly, I will ask that the audience be seated as close as they can possibly get them to the front and packed in the middle. And the reason I do this is not for my own ego, but so that the audience can feel more engaged. The worst thing about being a speaker is having your audience spread all the way out through the back of the room and having a bunch of empty seats. When people are spread out throughout the room like that, it's really easy for them to disengage and not pay attention to you. So that's why I always request that the audience be seated as close as they can to the front and packed in tightly to the middle. Now this particular event that I'm at, which is the International Women's Success Conference, you can see kind of the empty room back there. It's a really big room, but with this event, they always tend to sell out of tickets, and they usually tend to have last-minute registrations at the door, so I never really have to worry about the room being sparse. The room here is always going to be packed, and so that's cool. Hey guys, alright, so I'm backstage again, and I'm gonna wrap this video up because I don't want it to be too long. Again, this is just gonna be part 1 of a series of 4 videos where I actually walk you through how to prepare for the warm-up and how to do the warm-up and as the event concludes. So a lot of people always ask me, hey, how should I stay hydrated? That's hugely important. When you're up speaking for an entire hour or more and you're shouting and moving around the room, you really wanna stay hydrated and keep your vocals lubricated. So one thing I recommend is do not drink any tea or coffee. Those are diuretics. Even energy drinks, those take the water and take the moisture out of your body, and so you really want to make sure you stay hydrated. One of the things that I actually love drinking is Vita Coco, coconut water. That is one of the main drinks that keeps your body fully hydrated. Another thing that I recommend is Pedialyte, so the stuff that you feed babies. So that actually comes in the dry packets. You can add it to water, drink that all day, and you should be solid. You should be good to go. Another thing is colognes and perfume. I actually recommend not wearing any cologne or perfume, especially if you have to speak for a long period and use your vocals. The reason why is because a lot of perfumes, a lot of colognes, they have a very high fume content, and so when you smell those fumes, a lot of times those fumes can get into your vocal cords and strip your cords, and that can dry your voice out as well, and so not so good. So I would recommend do not use any perfumes, any colognes while you're speaking, and you should be solid. Alright, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm actually behind stage right now before the event starts and the doors officially open. So as an audience warm-up act, be mindful that you might be called upon to do a lot of things that were not originally on your agenda. So in a few minutes, I'm actually going to go outside and talk to the people that are in line. They're ready to get in the doors or running a few minutes behind, but that's okay. Well, my job is going to be to get out there in just a couple minutes and entertain them and just kind of get them warmed up and get them excited about being here and just to kind of stall a little bit. So I might show you some footage of that in just a minute, but again, as an audience warm-up, you always want to be prepared for things that come up at the last minute, but we're going to have fun, we're going to knock it out, and we're going to make this event phenomenal. All right, stay tuned.